Hi everyone. So I'm not in my car today. Surprise, surprise. I'm in my office and I wanted to make one more video just discussing the topic requests that I got after my one post that I put on YouTube. And this one's going to be about head/brain symptoms. And this is a big, big, big topic because this is one of the primary symptoms that comes up for people and that many, many people find extremely distressing for multiple reasons. So, I want to mention before I get started that I am doing coaching again Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday from 12 to 5 p.m. Mountain Time. I'll put the link to my direct booking calendar in the description of this video, as well as a link to my website if you want to check out some FAQs. You can schedule appointments there as well. You can read more about my story, some testimonials, things like that. So moving on, and just keep in mind that I speak directly kind of from my heart without sounding super cheesy in all of these videos. I used to do really structured planning on my videos, but this is a topic, like all of the whole layers of psychiatric drug withdrawal and reactions is something that I've become quite passionate about, and I feel like I've just learned an incredible amount about in the last 6.5 years. So yeah, I try to just speak from my heart in these videos. So I want to share about the head and brain symptoms, and I'm going to include mind symptoms as well, because this is something that is near and dear to my heart because it was my absolute worst, most torturous symptom. And I'm going to talk about the most common ones that I see and how they cluster together, because someone had mentioned, I believe they were 13 months off and were really struggling with this and wanted a specific video about these types of symptoms. So remember, like in every other video, that not everything applies to everybody, and some of the times I'm making generalizations if I'm talking about specific drugs, and really any of these drugs in any combination can cause any or all of the symptoms that I'm going to outline here. So I would say the first and kind of most common symptom or head symptom that people think about when they think of antidepressant withdrawal is brain zaps, which, I think even before I ever took these drugs, I can't remember because it was so long ago, but I had heard of brain zaps, at least from what I can recall. Again, and that was really all I ever thought was associated with antidepressant withdrawal was brain zaps. I thought that was really all there was to it, and I had no other information or no reason to believe that there was anything else to coming off these drugs. And so in my own experience, after 7 years of citalopram and a 4-week taper, I had brain zaps every few seconds, I would say, for about a month. And I remember during my 7 years of time on SSRIs that if I would travel home, because I was living away from home for a weekend and not pack enough pills or end up staying a couple extra days or just forget them, I would just not take my antidepressant. I didn't know there was any danger in skipping doses. And I remember feeling really weird, like buzzes in my head. And I had no clue. I was like, why do I feel these weird, like buzzing sensations? And I realized now that I was going into withdrawal and that I was experiencing brain zaps. But once I came off the drugs in 2018, that was when I experienced brain zaps. That was the only time, and they lasted for about a month. And some people do find brain zaps quite distressing, but I would say the majority of people don't really bring them up as something that's causing them a lot of distress. So I'm not going to spend much time on that subject. Or that specific symptom. I'm going to talk more about the distressing ones that people experience. So I would say the most common symptom or head symptom that I see from people going through withdrawal or some version of this is head pressure. A lot of people will describe this differently, but they'll say they just feel like this pressure sensation. Some people will say they feel like there's a tightening or some type of band around their forehead or around different parts of their head that feels like it's squeezing or tightening. But a lot of people will just say they feel like they have pressure in their head. Now, I never experienced this symptom, which I'm kind of surprised because it is so incredibly common, and because I did take SSRIs long term. I took benzos for 3 months, and then I took 8 or 9 other drugs intermittently off and on to try to fix the first withdrawal because I was uneducated. And yeah, that's a whole other story. But I never experienced head pressure, so I can't speak specifically on how it felt for me because I did not ever experience that symptom. And people will say, and a lot of times too, these symptoms will cluster together, and that is also very common. And so when people will say to me, I have this incredible head pressure, I'll ask them, what else do you experience at the same time or around the same time that you experience the head pressure? And they might experience it all the time, but a lot of times it's kind of intermittent. But they'll say, yeah, symptoms will often cluster together when I'm getting this head pressure. And I would say the most common thing, or two things I would say, one of them would be pain. So they could feel pain in their head, pain in their face, pain in their eyes, and or DPDR. I would say those are the three kind of most common clustered symptoms as far as like head pressure, going with derealization, depersonalization, and pain. And people might have pain and describe their pain slightly differently, but it's all kind of different versions or different ways of recollecting about the same thing. And so those tend to cluster together. I will also often ask people, do you experience tinnitus at the same time? Because tinnitus will often come with those types of pressure feelings and or burning. So that's going to segue me into the next symptom, which is burning. So burning can be anywhere on the body, and I found that a lot of times benzo users are the most affected by burning. So people will say acid burning feelings, skin burning, bone burning, blood boiling feelings, just this horrible burning sensation. Some people have it in their back, some people have it in their necks, a lot of people have it in their head. So it'll feel like their brain is burning. I didn't have the brain burning so much in my head as I did in my face and in the rest of my body. So I had it really bad in my upper arms, but I would experience it like all over my body and in my face. And I would explain it, I think I've described it in other videos as like hot oil, almost like sparking on my face or dropping on my face, or like this sensation that there was a spider that was on fire that was moving around my face. So kind of on my cheeks, around the bridge of my nose. It could be really anywhere on my face, but I would have this heat and this nerve burning feeling in my face. And my eyes often would just be on fire. If anybody that is one of my subscribers on this channel was privy to my old channel, so I had a channel when I was in citalopram withdrawal, when I was much less educated about these drugs than I am now, and I would film myself just kind of day to day and what my day looked like. So rather than it being a channel about feeling better, it was a channel more documenting my experience. And I would be sitting in front of a humidifier, like one of those portable ones, like a fairly big one with hot steam, and I would just have it just propped right up here, and it would just be blowing hot steam in my face because my eyes would just burn, and they often felt like they had absolutely no moisture in them at all. And I remember I went to several different optometrists, and one of them did the test where they put those like papers in your eye, and she said you have absolutely no moisture at all. And it wasn't so much about the like actual lubrication. I guess I had some type of actual like water lubrication, but the oil that like comes out of the glands around your eyelashes weren't releasing oil to keep that moisture on my eyes. And so she said verbatim, she's like, it's like you have these raw exposed nerves in your eyes. And when she said that, I remember thinking this has got to be from the drugs, because your whole body feels like a raw exposed nerve when you come off or have adverse reactions. And I just had this horrific eye pain. And a lot of times too, I would have migraines or like headaches / migraines, but it would feel like they were coming out of my eyes. And I remember my doctor saying, or my optometrist saying, you might be having ocular migraines. And the whole thing was just a mess. I mean, this burning face, this hot oil dripping sensation, or like these hot spiders crawling around my face sensation, pain in my face, bulging like this. It felt like my eyes were like bulging out of my head and just on fire, and just this incredible pain that would come out my eyes. It was kind of like, and I would think it was sinus infections or like a toothache sometimes. Like, I don't know how many times I went to the dentist in my withdrawal saying I have a toothache and nothing would ever be found. And my one dentist said, I think you're having nerve pain. And I mean, it's all related. And so I would have all of these clusters of symptoms as well. And that's not getting into the mental hell that I went through. So these are head brain symptoms that I hear a lot of. So burning brain, burning anywhere in the body, incredible pain in the face, head, neck, eyes, tinnitus, so ringing ears, head pressure, tight band feeling around the head, and brain zaps, which are pretty minor for a lot of people that I talk to. Another one that is very distressing for people is dizziness. So I wouldn't say that dizziness or chronic vestibular symptoms are super common, but I absolutely have coached people whose primary symptom is chronic dizziness. And that obviously is, well, everybody that I've ever talked to will go to an ENT and they'll rule out inner ear problems, and it's never that when it comes to these drugs. It's always originating from the brain and nervous system, and that can be really distressing. So some people will experience an actual dizziness feeling. Some people will have dizziness feeling triggered by movement of the head. Some people will feel like they're rocking on a boat or swaying, or like the floor is moving underneath them. There's all different ways that the dizziness can manifest, and everybody describes it slightly differently, but it's very vestibular. It's originating from the head or from the brain. So that's another one that is pretty common. No, sorry, not super common, but common enough that I've coached people with just specifically that problem. Another one, well, okay, so these often cluster together. All of these ones are, or a combination of these ones that I've just described. For me, I would always know when I was going into a wave because my ears would ring. I would start feeling those burning sensations. And then, I mean, the mental racing and looping would just turn up to like the highest notch possible. And I would just start hallucinating and feeling these sensations on my body. It was just torturous. I've made severe mental symptoms videos before. You can check them out. I mean, I had the most horrific looping, horrific horror movie. I won't even say all the words. I'm sure they'd be trigger words here on YouTube. Just visually in my visual field, just seeing just horror show, just 24/7. And I noticed at one point, I remember talking to my support people. I was out for a walk because I often was walking and chatting with people. It was like a body release, body distraction, and a mental distraction combined. That was the only thing that got me through those horrible times. And I remember saying to one of them at one time during my walk, it's like when I turn my head, it almost feels like a trigger. I feel like I have to just sit in one spot and not move. And even then, it's still there, but it was like as soon as I turned my head, it got worse. And people who have vestibular symptoms have commented that same type of thing. And I mean, it's all related. So people, doctors will often misdiagnose people or gaslight people and say, oh, you're just having a psychological problem. You just have mental illness. This is a psychiatric issue. I mean, it's totally ridiculous. And then people will say, well, I just need a neurologist. This feels neurological. The way that I describe this whole experience is neuropsychiatric, because it all goes together. And a lot of times people will experience these neurological issues, this burning, the tinnitus, the zappy feelings in the body, the electrocution feelings in the body, all of these nerve sensations, and it'll often be paired with mental hell. So this could be DPDR, it could be looping intrusive racing thoughts, it could be the S word, ideation, urges, looping thoughts on that. It all goes together. I mean, it's not like we're cut off at the neck here and only, certain things happen in your mind and it's independent of the body. I mean, it's all related. And a lot of people, I would say most, if not all people, have clustered symptoms like this. Especially people who have been kindled, polydrugged, and have had quite severe experiences. Most people have these clustered neurological and psychiatric issues. So I would say that those are all of the brain and head symptoms that I can think of, and the ones that come up all the time in coaching calls. And I would say top of those lists, even more than just like way more than brain zaps, which a lot of doctors will say, oh yeah, you get brain zaps and that's all you really get, would be head pressure, burning, tinnitus, and DPDR. I would say they're the most common, but all of the ones mentioned are still quite common, the ones that I just mentioned. I will say too that between everything I've read, all of the thousands at this point conversations I've had, I'll just add on ways people have described head and brain symptoms. So I've heard it described as a bomb going off in your head. And I've mentioned this too as part of my cortisol rushes or whatever goes on when you're trying to relax and your whole body just like bolts awake, or just like you get this rushing through your body. So I would get that during my reinstatement. And when I was really in acute, I would just try to rest and I would get this rushing through my body, and I would almost like audibly hear, and I don't know if it was actually audible or if I was hallucinating or what, but I would hear this bang or this popping sound. It was like a gunshot or like a bomb, and it would just bolt me up and my head would just go like this, and it was really scary. And it was around that time that I developed the severe muscle jerking and the pseudo seizures, I think one doctor called them. I was pretty much convulsing, but I was conscious. It was just a nightmare. And so I had this sensation, this sound of like a bomb going off in my head. I've heard people describe it as feeling like part of their brain is missing. I've heard people describe it as a sloshing, or it's like their brain is rattling inside their skull or pushing up against their skull or shaking or vibrating or moving, like it's moving around. They're feeling movement in their head that you shouldn't be feeling. You shouldn't be aware of like your brain moving around in your skull. Some people will also say they have like a crawling feeling underneath their skin or their scalp, like something is crawling. There's insects or bugs or like crawling around underneath their scalp. So I've heard people say that as well. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I'm missing. Floating head feeling. So I never had that, but when I was experiencing the little bit of DPDR that I experienced, I did not have really DPDR. It would feel like my arms were detached. And I remember eating and looking down, and it was like it was someone else's arms. And I had these weird visuals, or like it was like I could see myself from above, or like I remember driving one day and I could see myself from behind. It was really freaky. I just this the worst trip of your life is like what this hellish experience is like. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I would say that those absolutely are. Oh, one more. So people will describe like a pulling in the back of their neck, and I don't know if you would or describe that as like a head brain mind symptom. Maybe, I guess, well, your neck is attached to your head, so people will describe a pulling, like there's like something is pulling your neck back, or your muscles are pulling you back. So I hear that too, and that can happen really anywhere in your body, but I would say the most common place that I hear it is in the neck, this sensation of being pulled back. So all of these are super distressing, and that's not even getting into like the eye symptoms, the visual snow, the shaking eyes, the flashing lights that people experience. That maybe is a topic for another video. But I would say those are, yeah, I think that's everything that I can think of now. If I'm missing any, or you have something to add, feel free to comment below. And like I've mentioned in several videos, the general timelines for people, and keep in mind this can vary from person to person, absolutely. First 6 months, I would say, especially 2 to 6 months off, most intense for people. 6 to 24 months, a lot of people experience breaking up of symptoms, so windows and waves. And then if you end up going past 24 months, that's when people turn a corner a lot of times, is around the 2-year mark. This can vary widely, but I would say generally that is kind of the common timeline. And so if you're at that 13-month mark, or you're approaching the first year, the end of the first year, or you're in the middle of the second year, and you're still feeling like you're experiencing a lot of intense symptoms, try not to let that freak you out. I recently filmed a video about the nonlinear process of recovery, and that goes into more detail about, I think it was that one, where I talk about how waves can still be super intense, and not everybody experiences the windows getting shorter and less intense, and the waves getting longer and brighter in this perfect pattern. It really is all over the place. And then you go backwards and then forwards, and then you go up and down and around. It's like that one thing on social media where it has a side-by-side picture, and one of them is like what people think healing is like, and it's like this. And then the next side will say what healing is really like, and it's just this series of squiggly lines and back and forth and up and down, but generally the trajectory is up. So anyway, I don't want to ramble too long here. My neighbor's starting to make a lot of noise downstairs, so I'm going to wrap this up. And I hope this was helpful, and I hope you guys are doing okay and never give up the fight. I'll see you next time. Bye.